Alexander Barabanov needs to have a monster second half of the season, at least to give us some clarity. So all that and more on today's episode.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Probably part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everyday, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch this on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be discussing which players need to have big second half of the season, so that way we get some clarity about their future. Every player we're talking about is in the last year of their deal, so we need to kind of figure out what to do with them, I guess, as Sharks fans. And Mike Grier and David Quinn need to kind of figure out what to do with them, and which players I think would behoove them to have at least come out of the gates for the second half here strong. So before we get into all that, I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you guys by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we're going to start with Alexander Barabanov, among the players we're going to be talking about, the longest tenured Shark. And I think the Shark that we as Sharks fans had a lot of confidence about going into this season. You know, there was, of course, he's going into the last year of his deal, but I did a whole episode about this offseason if the Sharks should keep him or trade him, and what I would be comfortable giving Barabanov. And I was very much in the give him a 4-year by 4.5 or 4-year by 4x4 or 4-year by $4.5 million deal. If he continues to play the same way he's played. Well, you and I both know that this has not been the year we expected from Barabanov, and we'll dig into his stats here right now. Barabanov, who's in the last year of his $2.5 million deal, has played 31 games. He has 3 goals, 6 assists. With 44 shots on goals, 16.23 average ice time, Corsi for 43.66, goals for 24.24, which is around kind of almost the averages actually for the Sharks. But none of these numbers are super impressive. And I know Barabanov has some issues this year, of one, dealing with, a broken finger that cost him about 5 weeks. And 2, not kind of having his partner in crime, Logan Couture, available to the Sharks. And that right there, I think, kind of gives you some pause with Barabanov. Yes, I know San Jose has been a disaster for most parts, but we have seen some players play pretty well, right? You've seen Eklund play well. You've seen Fabian Zetterlund play well. We've seen Hertl play well. Granlund's played well. And Barabanov, who we thought would be top 6, easily a top 6 forward this year, has kind of played more of a middle 6 with a lot of third line play. And it is kind of seen his ice time reduced this year compared to what we have seen in the past couple seasons from Barabanov, where Barabanov was a staple in the top 6 and a staple on the power play, and was, a huge part of kind of any success that the Sharks found. But I think, though, for Barabanov, right, there's still a big question of what do you do with Barabanov at the trade deadline? Do you keep him? Do you trade him? All that fun stuff. But we have about a month. So as of Thursday, it'll be 1 month from the trade deadline. We need to get some clarity with Barabanov, right? Because this season has been an absolute mess with him, right? And you've seen flashes, and he seems to kind of starting to kind of get things going again. But Barabanov was looking to be a potential 50, 60-point player for you in a career year. And he is on pace to get, 20, 25 points for you the way he's playing this year. Granted, he's missed a lot of time with injuries, but He has 9 points in 61 games, or in 31 games. There's basically 31 games left. That would give you 18 points if you double it up right there. So I think Barabanov is the guy where we want to really see him coming out of the break, coming out strong, and trying to have a strong second half to at least give us some clarity of what to do with him. Because if he plays well, right, if you want to trade him, it makes his trade value better because you can say, like, look, we'll throw away the first half of the season. He's dealing with some injuries, but look at how he's played over the past month. Look what he could do for your team, right? He could be a huge piece. He can play in your middle six. If he's playing in our middle six, he can easily play in your middle six and be a huge contributor, especially if he has better talent around you, right? Which, assuming he gets traded to a playoff contender, he's going to be playing with better players. At least that's what you expect. Or you can go back and be like, Barabanov, we want you to stay here. We think you can be a huge part. We got guys coming. Will Smith's going to be coming. We're going to be picking, top 3, potentially top player, having Macklin Celebrini coming. We want you to be part of, help bridge between us and the next Sharks team. You've been a great player for us. We feel like you've really kind of found your game playing here. Let's keep this going. Let's reward you for we know this is an off season, but we think you can be the guy that we saw the past 2 seasons, being a solid 40 to 50 point player season with the potential of, hitting 60 points going forward, especially when we start adding more pieces and talented players around us, and just kind of maybe write this off as a bad season. But I think it's really, really important to give some clarity, because if Barabanov continues to struggle as he's has for the season, if he kind of continues this, what do you do, right? You're not going to, well, you could trade him, but you're probably not going to get what he's actually worth, right? Because like Barabanov is a really good, solid to good player who's having a bad season. So if you trade him, you're kind of selling low. Or you could not trade him, you can get to free agency, then he could walk and then you don't get anything for him. Or you can, maybe the silver lining is maybe if he does want to stay, it does help contract negotiates a little bit, and maybe he's not getting that, 4.5 million. Maybe he's a $3.5 to $4 million player, so it saves you a little bit of money with the contract negotiations, and then you can be looking at, well, Barabanov's on a pretty solid contract for the next couple seasons. So if he does turn around, you want to trade him later, or you want to keep him around to have him help, especially with the influx of Russian players, having Shakir Mukhamadullin, having Nikita Hochuk, kind of the influx of Russian players, like having a guy like Barabanov who can spin around the system for a little bit, and maybe he can kind of be a guiding player for some of these young guys. So, I think Barabanov, we just need some clarity. So I think him playing well kind of makes the Sharks' job a little bit easier, because I personally would want to keep Barabanov. I think this has just been a bad season. And I think Barabanov, who, yes, he's a little bit older, but it's not like he has like a bajillion miles on him. And this is kind of the first time we've really seen him deal with any major injury, right? I know he kind of was dinged up at the end of last season, and again, it was a fracture. It was kind of those are unlucky bounces where, the puck just hit him or I think he got hit by a stick, if I remember correctly. And like, those are just kind of unlucky things. It's not like like Couture, right, where you're dealing with like kind of more of a soft tissue issue or something like that, or like a hip issue. He just broke his finger like that. That's just bad luck type of scenario. So I think though, and even if you go way, way back, Joe Pavelski broke his finger in the beginning of the season, and he kind of tried to play through it, and it took him a long time to kind of get back to being Joe Pavelski. So hopefully this couple weeks here off rest here let's Barabanov get back to being Barabanov, and then we can kind of be able to grade Barabanov fairly going into the trade deadline of what should you do with him. Get a better sample of work from out of Barabanov. So if he's really good, you can either trade him while the price is high, or if he's really good, you can just re-sign Barabanov and have him be a Shark for the next few seasons. So before we get into two guys who I think have different situations, but still a lot of questions to be answered, Anthony Duclair and Filip Zadina do need to take a quick break. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't a search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed, your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So join more than the 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement plan thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th, so get started on Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investment involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA conditions available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker dealer. All right, let us talk about Anthony Duclair, who is also in the last year of his contract situation. So looking at Duclair, 1 year, $3 million left this season, has in 46 games, has 9 goals, 8 assists, 72 shots on goal, 1550 average time on ice, 41.76 Corsi for, goals for 42.31%. And Duclair, unlike Barabanov, I think Duclair is gone, to be honest, right? And something to keep in mind with Anthony Duclair, he represents himself, right? He is his own agent. So if Anthony Duclair isn't really happy in San Jose, and there's nothing to say that Anthony Duclair is really unhappy or happy in San Jose, but just kind of, Duclair has been a healthy scratch several times, has played down the lineup, has a couple games where he started on the fourth line and has worked his way up, but hasn't really gone maybe what we expected from him and from the Sharks, right? We thought he could be a potential 30-goal scorer for the Sharks, could, maybe lead the Sharks in goals. But this season has been a tough season for him. And I think for him, having a strong second half boosts the trade value. And I think that way you can showcase him kind of the pump and trade, right? And we know Duclair is a former 30-goal scorer. We've seen it before. He played really well last year coming back from, his Achilles injury, especially in the playoffs. He would be a huge fit for a lot of teams that are looking to add some scoring pop into their middle six. And we know Anthony Duclair is fast. Maybe not the most defensively responsible player, but again, Anthony Duclair is a guy who can score a lot of goals for you on a very reasonable contract at $3 million. So for personal things, like for the best return to try to get, maybe squeeze out a back end of the second round pick, getting Duclair hot here going into the trade deadline would be really nice. There's, again, a month. If Duclair is like potting like 5 or 6 goals in the next month and gets that goal total to around 15, that looks a lot better than a guy who has 10 goals, right? And you can kind of maybe sell that a little bit more. And I think most teams kind of know what the situation is happening in San Jose. But still, having a guy who's maybe got 15 goals, a little bit easier to kind of sell to, if you're Mike Grier, be like, hey, do you want Duclair? He has 9 goals this season. He can score a lot of goals, maybe not with us, but he can score a lot of goals. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of talk somebody into that if you're in the 15 range. So I think him having a really strong kind of start to the second half would be huge for the Sharks as they try to kind of gather as many assets going into the trade deadline to get themselves ready for the NHL draft. So another guy who I think needs a good second half would be Filip Zadina. Zadina this year has, in 46 games, has 5 goals, 4 assists, 81 shots and goals, playing 12.47 average time on ice, 42.22 Corsi for, 28.30 goals for at 5v5. And Zadina has had a weird season because you've seen flashes of, and I think this is probably encapsulates Zadina's career, and you hear this from a lot of Red Wings fans after he signed with the Sharks of, Zadina's going to drive you crazy because he does a lot of stuff, but he just can't put the puck in the net. And that's what he was known to do, was kind of put the puck in the net when he got drafted. And Zadina's turned himself into a really fine fourth line player, and he is an RFA. So if the Sharks want to keep him, like they can keep him. They own his rights. Like, it's not going to be the most expensive contract to re-sign him. But I think you'd like to have some clarity, kind of going back to the Barabanov situation of, yes, having Zadina around is nice, and maybe he has that late career boom, kind of starts to kind of figure things out. But again, like Zadina's, maybe he's just is this guy. Maybe he's just a third or fourth line guy going forward, and he's not going to be the most expensive player in the world. And maybe he's just going to be a kind of a holding a spot until some of your younger guys are ready. But it would be nice to see Zadina have a strong kind of start here, to at least a strong second half. And maybe it's not the start, but at least finish strong, right? And kind of continue to build, because we've seen him play really well. And I would really like to see him get some more opportunity in the top 6, especially after the trade deadline, or maybe heading into the trade deadline, is to get some more opportunity in the top 6 to see what he can do. We saw flashes of him play well with Hertl and Eklund, but just couldn't score. And that line, of course, like their ability to drive shot attempts was really good. They just weren't scoring. And again, maybe that's just Filip Zadina, who's going to be just unable to score throughout his entire career. But I want to see him maybe get another chance with, a Couture, or with the Granlund, or with a Hertl, like one of this top centers, and we'll give him some time to kind of build some chemistry, right? And he's had to play with, Ryan Carpenter or Luke Cunnin, or, had to play center himself this year, and he's done, a solid job of maybe not being put in the best position there. But again, just give us some clarity, give us something to kind of hope for with Zadina, where you can maybe see the post-hype kind of breakout from him going into the next season. Again, it's not like he's 24 right now. Like, he still has plenty of hockey in front of him. He's never going to be the guy who was picked, what was it, sixth overall, as a potential 40 goal scorer. I think that ship has sailed. But can you be a 20 goal scorer, right? Can you be a really good quality depth piece? Can you be an awesome third line guy who provides some scoring pop? Can we see signs of that right now? I think having Zadina get going here, playing with a good center going forward, I think would be a huge thing for the Sharks as they continue to try to find these pieces and find guys who are going to be contributors going forward. So before we continue, we're going to talk about Calen Addison and if he can claim a spot in what's becoming a very crowded blue line as guys start to get healthy, and what's his future going forward. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. When buying tickets, you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets. It shouldn't be a big stressful thing. That's where GameTime comes in. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The thing I love about them is, you can see where you're going to sit before you buy your tickets. Nothing worse than getting there and realizing you have bad seats. Actually, the only thing worse is when you go to check out and they slam a bunch of fees. That's why I love using the all-in pricing, so you can see exactly what you're going to pay up front. You're not going to get a bunch of surprises when you go to check out. So go check out GameTime by downloading the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's get into Calen Addison, who the Sharks acquired very early in the season to kind of help with some of their defensive woes. And it's been a very mixed bag from Addison. So Addison, who has 1 year left on his deal at $825,000, is an RFA. He's played 31 games for the Sharks this year, has 1 goal, 6 assists, 37 shots on goal, playing 17.36 average time on ice, 41.94 Corsi for, goals for 29.63. It's a lot of Sharks in the 20s and 30s when it comes to the goals for. But again, this team is very bad. But Calen Addison, right, it's going to be a really much a numbers game for the Sharks here going forward because, again, you just have a lot of pieces on the blue line and not a lot of guys separating themselves. Just a quick reminder. So as of, right now, I know there's some guys still on IR. So defensemen on IR right now, Henry Thrun, Matt Benny, Mario Ferraro. Of course, Benny's not coming back this season, but Ferraro and Thrun are supposed to be back after the All-Star break. You also have Vlasic, Ruda, Burrows, Addison, Ahochuk, Ty Emerson, and then Jacob McDonald, who's been playing mostly forward, but can slide into defense. So you're running out of spots, right? You can play 6, or usually you play 6 defensemen a night. Maybe you go the 11-7 route, but you're kind of running out of spots here. And, Vlasic has played much better, especially since the beginning of kind of the year. Jan Ruda's, he's been perfectly cromulent. Kyle Burrows has been kind of perfectly cromulent. But Ty Emerson, I know he's been dealing with some injuries, but has played much better than Addison throughout the season. Henry Thrun, the same, has been playing much better than Addison. And then you have basically, it kind of comes down to Addison and Ahochuk fighting for those last spots. And again, Addison is much different defenseman than Ahochuk, because is more offensively driven, a little bit of a smaller than Ahochuk, but like we want to see again just that clarity. Can we get some clarity? What are you, Calen Addison? You were kind of running the power play 2 for a little bit, but then when Muka Madulin came up, Muka Madulin took that job, and Addison was actually playing on power play 1, especially with Mikael Granlund out. But it's just you feel like you're just kind of wanting more watching Calen Addison, and kind of that gets hemmed into his own zone a lot. We haven't really seen the clean breakout passes that you were hoping for, kind of the clean breakouts and transitions from Calen Addison, right? Like just watching Muka Madulin, who's played 3 NHL games, and Calen Addison, Muka Madulin just much better getting the puck out of the zone and getting things going here, while Addison just kind of gets hemmed into his own zone, and then hasn't really taken and solidified himself as that power play opponent, one guy. Maybe Calen Addison's just kind of that classic tweener guy where he's not quite NHL good, not quite good enough for the NHL, but is probably maybe a little bit too good for the AHL. And I think, again, just some clarity, especially because it's going to get that logjam, and Shakir Mukhamadulin's going to be playing again in the NHL at some point. He was too good. I know it was a 3-game sample size, but that is Mike Grier's shiny toy that he has been, that he got from the Timo Meier trade. And he's going to want to show it off at some point. Muka Madulin was great, and it was fun watching him in the AHL All-Star. He's talking to him. He's a very humble, quiet guy. But it's he's going to be really good, man. Like he's going to be taking people's jobs here soon. So is Calen Addison going to have his job taken, or is he going to be able to take some of his job? And especially if he struggles coming out, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sharks do not re-sign him, even if he's an RFA. I wouldn't be surprised, just because, again, a lot of the other defensemen have shown a lot more promise. And the offensive guy that's your offensive defenseman, Shakir Mukhamadullin, like he is going to be given priority because, one, he's younger, 2, he's better, bigger, better, faster, like whatever you want. Like Shakir Mukhamadullin is that compared to Calen Addison. So I think Addison is going to have to realize this is kind of nut crunch time here. This is the time where he's going to have to kind of fight for a roster spot. And if it's not for the Sharks, again, maybe putting some good tape together. So when if he gets to free agency or gets out, becomes available, a team will want him. So I'm intrigued to see how Calen Addison's second half of the season goes, especially because there's such a log jam on the blue line. And what do the Sharks do? What does Calen Addison do? Who kind of emerges among the blue lines is one of the big kind of stories I'm watching going to the second half, because, again, there's so many names, and Mike Grier has been able to kind of navigate with all the injuries and guys kind of getting injured, almost like getting injured. I don't want to say at the right time, but as other guys are getting healthy, it seems like another guy goes down. So I'm intrigued to see what happens if, with everybody healthy-ish, who gets priority and who kind of gets lost in the shuffle here, or maybe is getting healthy scratched. And then again, what happens when Muka Madulin comes back? So that's going to be it for me today. Planning on something special tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. If you missed it, we had Will Scouch made his return, where we talked about Sam Dickinson. So we did a whole draft profile on him, got Scouch's thoughts on the 2024 draft, which he's very mixed about right now. We also talked about Timo Meier trade this week. Also talked about Vlasic trade. There's plenty of stuff from the AHL All-Star on the YouTube page. So plenty, even though it's the bye week, still putting out, at least I think it's good content. So make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.